Our guest today, Calvin, is going to show us that the way we motivate construction teams has changed. He specializes in setting clear expectations, incentives, team building, and productivity. Stay tuned for the whole episode. Okay, Calvin, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Excellent. So tell us a bit about your background and your leadership style. So you had a bit of a journey from Lafarge to becoming a B2B entrepreneur. Tell us about that story.
Yeah. So I spent my whole career in construction. I started at Lafarge. They're a construction materials multinational. And I joined after my undergrad, and it was a leadership development program. So I got the benefit of rotating through the company. I got exposure to cement, concrete, asphalt paving construction. And I spent the last 5 years of my career there delivering aggregates, which is sand and stone. And we're delivering those to heavy civil construction projects. And one of the big things that I experienced there, I was a young manager, and my first day on the job, I was told that I was the 11th manager in 10 years, and I intended to not continue the trend, but I needed information, which was really hard to have. And in construction, it's very common that, and I experienced this firsthand, where workers hoard information because they're afraid of being replaced, or new workers get bullied to fit into the hierarchy. And when I was trying to establish myself here, I needed information, and it was all very verbal and relational. And so I struggled firsthand with that. But through the necessity, developed some digital tools that really helped us elevate our ability to make decisions. And that was the first inspiration for becoming an entrepreneur, was just how neglected frontline hourly workers were in terms of technology, and how little information they had, and how much potential existed to really unlock their creativity if we could empower them with some really simple to use tools with some better information. So I did that and had a great experience. I learned a tremendous amount. And then after spending 10 years at Lafarge, I was motivated to pursue my entrepreneurial ambitions. And I joined the founder of eCompliance, a health and safety software company. And we made frontline mobile tech for industrial workers. And this was a great start into B2B entrepreneurship. I had an experience to work across, again, the whole business. So I had an opportunity in product, sales and marketing, and customer success. And one of the benefits here was that I got to work with some of the best and safest companies in the world. And I was curious to learn what made them so great. Yeah. And what we found was that the safest companies in the world were able to engage with their workers and get them to actually participate and think about their risks and hazards, and bring their expertise on how to mitigate those risks. And not only were these companies safer, but the workers were also happier and more productive. And that was an incredible inspiration. And after we exited eCompliance in the summer of 2019, I was thinking about what to do next. And so I took these two really inspirational pieces, both from my experience at Lafarge and at eCompliance, and we thought we could apply them to our current venture at CrewScope.
Excellent. I don't normally jump in and ask the audience questions, but because you raised a particular topic, and that was about engaging teams and how that makes the company more safe, I'm going to ask the audience a question here. Do you have that same experience? And if not, what else do you find that is successful in engaging these teams? Calvin, thanks for that. I really appreciate the context there. It's really good to see where you've come from. So I'm interested to know how that experience influenced your leadership style and what you're going to bring to CrewScope.
So I had the unique opportunity at Lafarge to get very well trained in corporate goal setting and targets and measurement. Certainly influenced me tremendously. But I also experienced, like I mentioned, being a young leader in the construction industry. And as you know, the industry can be very verbal. It's very anecdotal. It's really important to talk to people. And often the people doing the work on the front lines are super experienced. They have a lot of knowledge. and they often know the answers, or they often see the problems and they know the answers. And so really, I've tried to bring these two insights to my leadership style. And so really, for one, it's to get close to the people that are experts, get close to the people on the front lines. Just by talking to them and asking them about how they see things and what their ideas are for how to solve them. Usually there's, the answer's right there. At the same time, being very deliberate in setting targets and goals. There's far more work to do on any given day or week than we're able to do, and it's important to be very focused and to be very disciplined with how we spend our time. And so we bring that same goal setting philosophy into our, both into our product, into CrewScope, but into how we run our business every week. So we often spend the beginning of the week just talking about what the priorities are, thinking about our capacity to execute, and then making sure that we're spending our time on the most important things. And then at the end of the week, we look back and we think about, have we done what we said we're going to do, and then focus on what's upcoming for the next week. So
it's interesting. I've also worked in big businesses and startups, and they are different beasts. But I heard a really good saying, something like most people overestimate what they can do in 1 week and underestimate what they can do in 1 year. So I sort of take that same philosophy as making sure that you're realistic about what you can do in any given week. But with that sort of comes motivation. So I know that a lot of what you're about and what CrewScope is about here is motivation for construction crews. So what's it all about? How do you keep teams motivated in construction?
Yeah. Well, let me first answer your question by telling you what doesn't work and what surely kills motivation. So, and this is coming from primary interviews, over 100 that we've done with laborers and operators, and leaders in the industry. And so what we've seen time and again is that threats do not work. It wasn't so long ago that, threats were how you motivated workers on a job site. And what I mean specifically was, work harder or out of here, show up on time or you're out of here. And I guess this was an effective way of motivating people because there was a lineup of workers outside your gate. But in a labor short world, that just doesn't work anymore. So threats are out. So we need a better way of motivating people. What else doesn't work? Not sharing enough information with workers. It wasn't so long ago where best practice was to say to your worker, I don't pay you to think, I pay you to do. And today that is just not acceptable anymore. It is not motivating to tell someone to go dig a hole. Not to mention that we live in a world of information. I mean, this is a cliche, but there's an expectation that information is readily available. It is instant. It is transparent. And when you live in that world and then you walk onto a job site, it is just not okay to keep workers in the dark anymore. And then finally the thing, so just try to like adapt that to the world we're in today. We find that the keys to motivation with workers are to set really clear goals with them. And goals are motivating for a number of reasons. It's good for all of us, not just in construction. It's good for all of us because it helps us understand what a win looks like. It helps us push and feel great about winning. It also helps us think ahead and anticipate obstacles and work through those. So goal setting is really effective. I mean, this, the audience knows this as well. And, but it works in construction, and there's a lot of opportunity to bring this practice to job sites. So first is goal setting. The second is to help workers understand how they're progressing by sharing more information with them. Workers love to know if they're on pace. They love to know that they're on track to hit their targets. And if something doesn't go wrong, workers love to know that as well because they want to participate in solutions. They want to participate in achieving targets. And really, this is what's key to connecting workers with meaning. Like I said, telling someone to go dig a hole is not motivating, but if you explain to them why that hole matters and to the bigger project, and and this goal is really crucial to the schedule for these reasons. That is really motivating. Workers love to know that they are creating value, and that they are driving the success of the project in a very tangible way. So that's the second piece. And the third is incentives and rewards. Something that's always bothered me about the industry is this misalignment of incentives. Workers are paid by the hour. Generally, the more hours they put in, the more they get paid. And construction projects make money when they stay on schedule. Yeah. And so we need a better way of incentivizing work. And by designing some short-term incentives that encourage the right kind of behaviors and that recognize that extra effort that crews put in to delivering their projects on schedule, and the extra money that they can create, they can earn for their business, we need to share some of that back with them. And this is a win-win situation where we can make companies much more money, and we can also pay workers more for being more productive. And that's something that we get excited about every day.
Nice. Yeah, it's great that you did that primary research. It's an important part of actually listening to people in the field. Back in the 90s, early 2000s, team building was a thing to try and motivate. That was sort of a cultural thing. You're saying information is pretty important. Has the pendulum swung too far the other way? Is there too much information now, too many places for workers to look and sift through and take away from getting the job done?
Great question. So there is a lot of information in construction. There's a lot of tech. There's a lot of apps out there. But from our experience, they're all built for the office. Workers on a job site, I'm talking about your laborers, your operators, your installers, they largely operate in an analog world, and they have no technology. For them, their only source of information is their site leader to verbally share with them what they're working on and how they're progressing, and if they've had a good week or not. And from our research with some of the best site leaders out there, we know that there's many of them out there, and they do this. They take the time to set goals, and they talk to their crew, and they recognize good performance, but they tell us that it's hard to do because job sites are so big, workers are spread out over such a large area, that even that they know that this is the right thing to do, and it's key to motivation today, it's still difficult to do in an analog world. And we're trying to change that by providing these digital tools that really help scale these best practices for the people doing the work. And you mentioned one thing before around team building, and that is still really important today. When from our interviews with workers, we ask them, why do you do this to yourselves? Like, construction is hard. You're up early. You're working outside. It's hard on your body. Why go through it? And the most common, consistent answer that we got was that it's really important to work towards a common goal. That's meaningful, and it's really fun to win together as a team. So that sense of a common objective and winning as a group.
Excellent. So let's say that a general contractor is watching this right now. What are some actionable steps that a company can take to improve productivity and motivation? What's the first thing they can do?
Okay, well, so interesting you asked me about general contractors. So from the point of view of a general contractor that's managing the work through sub-trades, so they're not necessarily performing the work themselves. Some of the best practice that we've seen, and I'm not telling anyone anything that they don't know, but it's to take the time to set really clear goals and to break those goals down into something that is meaningful for a week. Often we have very complex schedules, and there's hundreds of dependencies, and these goals can be rather large, months long, 3 months long. And what's important is that we're able to take a piece of that work and really make it tangible, that we can deliver in a week. And that's really a top-down approach. But just as important is to invite your site team to participate in these goal settings. The way that work is imagined in the office is often different from how your site leader experiences work on site. It's important to get the expertise from the site to participate in these goals, into these goals. They see the equipment, they see the size of the equipment, they know the quality of their crew, they understand the ground conditions, and all of these details are often intentionally broad brushed when we are estimating and bidding work. It's just far too complex to consider all these things. We need rules of thumb to bid jobs and to win jobs. But we need the experts on the ground that really understand the details and the day-to-day in how to build something. And, the best practice today is to bring these 2 points of view together and have them collaborate and set goals in cooperation.
Excellent. For the audience, I'd love to see some comments below about how you can help motivate your teams and focus on productivity. Always interested to learn more from the viewers. Okay, I'm thinking about technology. So, what sort of new technology do you see shaping construction, and maybe a little bit about the barriers to technology adoption? We often interview people that are involved in technology or interested in technology, but how can they overcome those adoption issues?
Okay, so let's talk about this from the change management point of view, but also from the actual technology design point of view. I'll start with technology design, and from our primary research, we know that construction workers in the field, they need technology that is very simple to use and that adds value immediately to what they're doing. I've lived firsthand through trying to deliver aggregates with technology that makes our job harder, and often this technology was designed by people that have certain needs for visibility or information, but it's not the people doing the work. And so when we're designing tech, it's really important to be really focused on who we're serving and to create value for the users almost immediately, and really to have this tech fit rather naturally into what they're already doing, and enhance that by helping them in some way, by giving them more information or helping them make faster decisions. So the design piece is important, and to be really focused on the user and to create value for them, rather than the person that's buying the tech, which sometimes is often someone else. The second piece on the change management side, this is a more complex conversation. Construction tends to be very project driven. So you have these sometimes multi-billion-dollar projects that get set up for just a few years, and then all of the costs have to be put through this project. And when the project is completed, this multi-million-dollar entity is dissolved. And the trick is being able to find a champion inside of that project that can actually own this tech, and see that it's being used properly, and that it's really communicate why we're doing this and the value that it's going to drive, and being able to get people to start using it and seeing that value. Construction companies often do not have a lot of overhead. There's no one really sitting in head office that can sort of own these projects. So the project needs to be, the technology needs to be owned by the project. Someone at the project needs to be able to, really own it, talk about it often, get people to use it and show value quickly. And they need to stay consistent with it over the life of the project.
Agreed. Yeah, it's imperative to get the field buy-in and add that value immediately. So then, thinking about the aggregate, excuse the pun there with your experience, but of data in the bigger picture. So back in head office, they've got a lot of data from a lot of different projects happening at once. How important is that? And maybe some best practices that you find around data.
So data is the future, absolutely, but it has to be useful, and I think that's the challenge today that we're seeing, is that there's so many different tools out there. There's so much data that we have, but it's not being used. And so I would say that, we have to be very clear about the kind of data that we need and how we're going to use this data to make better decisions. Because I would say right now, construction offices are inundated with data. They're inundated with data from all different parts, and it's very, very difficult to actually make use of this data. They almost need full-time analysts that are able to process, to receive it, to process, to format, to share it out, to explain what it means, to interpret the data. And they're only actually ever getting to a fraction of the data that they have. And so data has to be useful. So we have to introduce data in a way that can drive decisions. And we're very clear about the data that we need first to make those decisions. And then we're going to present it in a way that is fairly simple to digest and understand, and then make a quick action off those. I could continue talking around how some of the advances with AI, I know, very popular today as a sort of a catch-all, magical black box. I think, again, we need to be very targeted and specific with the kinds of data we're going to give to these large language models and the kinds of outputs that we need to make better decisions, because just trying to pump a bunch of data into a black box and ask a robot to make better decisions is not going to happen.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting field with these large language models and the opportunity that exists. But yeah, to your point, it needs to be able to extract the right things. And they're not the answer to everything, but certainly a fresh opportunity. Calvin, I want to thank you for being on the show. It's fantastic to see that intersection of technology and motivation, the high tech and the EQ side of things. So I applaud what you're doing, and I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right. And thanks to the audience. If you'd like to see more of these interviews, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thanks.